Hey guys, this is Simon with ToughTrader.com. Want to do a quick kind of a different way that I use volume profile to kind of get me a lay of the land to understand how we could have seen the breakout coming out on Friday. Now, I can tell you on Friday we weren't long the NASDAQ, but immediately the call went out right out of the gate that it was an open drive higher. And so the type of trading that I do, I buy pullbacks either to the pushes to the upside to short back down, or I buy longs on rollbacks back in, and preferably with the direction of the market. But you can see that a lot of times the market actually isn't directional; it's trading two-sided. So what I really want to know from looking at volume profile this way is how can I tell where the big breaks are going to come and where the major support areas are, right? And volume. So remember a couple things. So the what we're studying is why does volume matter, right? So the what is the volume, the so what is why does that matter, right? And therefore the what matters to you as a trader because, right? So let's start off with that concept, right? So we're on a pretty big time frame here, and what you'll notice, I find it so interesting that when we roll down, right? Was this the beginning of a breakdown or was it not the beginning of the breakdown? So what I'll do is I'll come through here and I'll take my volume profile tool. I'm using Sierra charts here. And I just kind of go day by day and I draw out where my volume build is. So I can kind of look and I can see each day where the pieces of volume are building. And I want to see where they're kind of accumulating over a period. So I'm going to draw each one of these out. And you see those little white lines are the points of control as they're building. So I know through here, right? See how I have my volume, excuse me. I have a volume build here, I have a volume build here, I have a volume build here, and I have a volume build here. So when I gap up, right, when I gap up on this day, the first thing I know is I'm going to go, hey, really from here to about right up here, right, 6001 to 5972 in that area. I don't have a specific location to trade in, but now I know. We have to get underneath that volume. This volume represents places where people were discussing price, right? And that we all agreed this was a good place to do business because we transacted a lot of volume in this area, right? Not much above, not much below, but all in this area we did a lot of business, right? So I know as we get above that I have a buffer that's basically 6001 to 5972. Now, as we continue to move along, right, what you're going to see now how most of the volume got done in this area here, and what I want to observe day over day, so I'm now in the 6th, right, and I'm looking for where volume's accumulating all in the same area, and you can see here we keep shifting volume up. It's not all being built in the same area. Value is shifting, so that tells me two things. First of all, we're not all agreeing on one price at one area, right? We're still basically, like here, we all agreed this was fair pricing. Here we don't agree so much, right? And we're searching for a place where we can all agree. And when we get to a place we all agree, volume will all start to build in one area. And then we will leave that area after we agree. Those are the rules. That's the way the market kind of works in a general sense, right? So again, why is this important? Because this is going to draw my boundaries for on days when the market goes down, I can work against to go, okay, I know as long as we hold this area, there's going to be support underneath me, or there's going to be resistance above me. So as you see, as we're building in, right, so we're now, I think we've got the 9th done. We're going to come into the 10th, right? We're going to come into the 11th, 12th area. And now all of a sudden, see how we're starting to bounce back and forth? Volume's starting to build here, right? I'm starting to get a pretty good sense here that if we don't drop underneath this level right here, so this is far before I get over here, right? I'm starting to see that there's a volume build right in here, right? The majority of my volume is going off in this little area, and I'm going to say to myself, hey, if we don't get below this area, we can't come back here if we don't get below here. Again, this is kind of volume profile for dummies. Again, this is not giving me exact trade locations, but it is giving me a general concept of what the market's doing underneath, right? And I'm going to continue with that concept. I'm going to come up and do the 12th to the 13th. Again, more volume gets built in this area. I'm starting to see that I'm starting to get a support area in here, right? This whole thick area. And if you'll notice, we then gap up. See, on the day we gap up on the 13th. How do I know that gap up is going to hold? Well, I don't know for a fact, but I do know now that we're really going to have to hold, I'm getting a whole area through here where we're actually going to have to hold this 6078 to 6053. I'm getting a lot of volume built. This helps me, right? Because if I want to be bearish, I know two things now. I've got to get below this build, and I've got to get below this build in order to be bearish, right? And then what I'm looking for is if we get underneath one of these builds, do they become resistance, right? So as I'm drawing out my profiles, again, really simple, not trying to make it too complicated, right? All of a sudden, see how we're building volume here? Now all of a sudden volume starts to pop in here, but I can also visually see it's not as big a volume, right? Now I'm going to come on my 18th. And then I notice on this date I gap down, right? So I come in on the 19th and I gap down. And what's the first thing that I'm going to say to myself is I'm going to be like, hey, if we don't get beyond this volume build, this gap down is going to find responsive buyers, right? So it's going to be incumbent on the market to get below here. Again, this isn't giving me specific trade areas, but I know I have a volume area. I know we got above that volume area they have to defend. But I know something else really important over here. See how I can now look up here and go, hey, most of my volume went off between here in order to go higher. I know that, right? And this is going to be really cool when we look at this in just a moment. So when we come through here and we gap down, notice all this volume acted as support. We come back up to test. All this volume acted as resistance. We come back down to support to test one more time. And then this is where I really find interesting. See how we finally whoosh down and we finally break support. And notice we really move to freely move through this area. And you know why we can move through this area so easily? There's really no volume build in here. We have one day where we attempted, but there's not multiple days where we're stacking up volume. So the what is the volume. So what? Why does it matter? Because where volume stacks up, those become support and resistance areas, right? And then you're going to notice, again, now this acted as support, this volume acted as support, and now when we come back up on the back side, this volume is now acting as resistance on the backside, right? And then as you'll notice as we're coming through on these series of days, right? If we draw each of these days out, the 19th, the 20th, right? We have a chunk of volume there, but we're looking over days for that volume to build, right? Come through the 24th. Notice we built more volume here, so the yet even more resistance gets packed in, right? We built more volume here, so this is adding to the support, right? So notice, what does the market do? When we come down, we hold where the old build comes, right? And then as we push back up, this now becomes resistance. See how we pushed up against that resistance? And that freed us up. We finally got so much weight overboard, right, that I would expect this to be a slow grind. Now, what would change that? What could possibly change that? Well, first of all, if you'll notice, what most likely would have happened had we not had the news from Amazon is that we would have come back in and tested that volume build right there. That was just dying to be tested. It didn't get tested. And why didn't it get tested? The reason for that was Amazon had great earnings. It changed the demeanor of the market, right? And if we now, I'm going to go drive you through a 24-hour so I can show you how slowly it slogged through here, and then once we got above, we were able to accelerate, right? So if we come in here, I add my overnight settings. Now, this is the 24-hour chart here. You'll see we came down, we got real sluggish, we came back up into resistance. Again, remember we have all these volume builds here. Earnings come out. Notice that when earnings come out, we shoot up right into where our old volume build is, and we pause. Then we have our old volume build. If you look to the left, it's all still sitting there, right? See the multiple days of volume that we had build up in that area, right? And now we move like a slow train through that, right? Why are we moving through like molasses? Well, two reasons. First of all, we're outside of regular trading hours, but even without that, people are defending these areas. See how we're slow slogging through here. And then all of a sudden, we peek our head above, right? See that? Just one little shoot. And then all of a sudden, everyone looks to the back and goes, hey, guess what? There's no one to fight against up here. We have clear area for takeoff, and we're able to do so. That's exactly what the market did. Now, to contrast that just a little bit, right? And to do this as quickly as possible, I'm going to go use the ES chart. Okay, we're going to clean this up for a second. Clean the chart. And then let's go to a bigger time frame just like we were prior. Okay, now if you'll look at the chart that we are on, what you'll see is we kind of sort of broke out, but not really, right? So if we go back and we do that same analysis, right, as we were chugging up, right? So watch where we come up, and we're going to start off here on the left, right? And I'm going to compact this one because I did a blow by blow, and I'm going to just make this a shorter picture, right? The first thing I know is if I generally draw a volume profile through this area, right? I can see there's a plateau here, and I want to see where all the volume is. That was my attempted breakout. Going to draw it up, and I can see I have a huge block of support, and my general support, I know I have to get below this area and hold below. So 2497 to 2491 is my support right now. But the other interesting thing was, why couldn't I break it? When I bring this out a little bit, so this was my first bogey, right? We never came close to penetrating it. When I look at this run up through here, right? If I draw my volume from here to here, that was my last build, and I draw my volume profile, I want to know where all the volume went off. I can see 2532 is where I had my next big build, right? And I'm really going to draw it from here to here. I've got to get below 2530, right, to make any impact to the downside, right? I want to say that again. I've got to get below 2536 to 2530 to come down and re-explore my support here to the left, right? And as I slowly drag off to the right, I want to show you a little bit more as this develops, right? So see how I get another block of support building in right in here, square through here? And if I cover that whole area, right, I can see that 2549, right? But not just 2549, 2549 down to about, call it 2544. That's my major area of support above this. See how I have no resistance above? But then as I'm chugging over here, so see the first time back to that 2549, 2544, I get a response right out of it. And now I make another push to new highs. See how I'm coming over here? So now I'm going to extend this even further to show you how this works. When I come through here, right, I can see 2554 becomes very important. It's not just 2554. I'm going to up it just a little bit. I'm going to go 2556 to 2554. Watch as I'm drawing it through, right? So, but something very interesting happened here. So see how when we come into 25, okay, notice both of my old areas, right? This became my new area, 2556 to 2554, right? 2556 to 2554, and then my old area, right? 2549 to 2544. Right? See how those two areas became very, very important, right? So if you'll notice, we didn't spend, so look at the number of days we spent here, look at the number of days we spent going sideways here. This would also be a generally weak area because we didn't spend a lot of time building. This is huge, right? But now something interesting has happened here. When I roll down to 2546, see when I draw this profile up on these couple of days, see how I have a huge slog of volume here at 2564. So we're going to cut this over to a 5-minute chart now. Watch what happens when we come back up against that, because this was just a couple of days ago. And when I come, okay, so notice, all my volume is sitting here. This is my last little build, between 2563 to 2562. So if you'll notice yesterday when we come in, see how we open underneath it, right? We travel to the top side of it. We roll back down to the bottom side of that. Why? This is getting defended, right? Once we get above that, this is my major volume build in this area. It covers 1, 2 full days, right? This doesn't cover a lot of time. I actually have a third day in here. So if I come draw this out right over here, you're going to see all the volume was sitting here. So when I combine all these, I have a huge chunk of volume sitting right here. This becomes important because I'm underneath. It now becomes my resistance. See that? Even yesterday we pushed up, we pushed back against it. And then once we get above, right, once we get above, free reign to push out. And you'll notice, unlike ES where it ran, it used this last little bit of volume to contain the move to the upside. It got exhausted. And the reason why it got exhausted is because every time it has to work through volume, you burn energy to come in. And that's why you have the contrast between ES, which ran but didn't run out of control, and NQ, right, which got above all its volume build here to the left, didn't even bother to come back and backside check it, and took off like a rocket ship. Anyways, my name is Simon. I'm with toughtrader.com. What we do is we teach people how to trade with accuracy on a day trading basis, right, and how to manage your positions properly so that you get accurate entry, and then line up what your targets are, and then wash, rinse, repeat. So we get the what, the so what, and what it means. And we put it all together to get a trading package that allows you to trade on a consistent basis, day in, day out, by posting those locations prior to the open so you know exactly where you want to have your trade entry. That relaxes your mind, lets you focus on managing risk, and then letting the market do the rest of the work. Hope everyone's having a wonderful weekend. I will see everyone on Monday morning. Have a great night.